Hey everyone, welcome to a super casual episode of Pass the Torch Legacies in Jewelry. My name is Naja. I am a young new bench jeweler and I just got out of my very first Tucson and I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to recap it. You can probably tell in my voice if you listen to some of my other episodes that it is pretty raspy. I'm on the cusp of losing my voice a little bit. I think I'm okay. I think I'm just run down. Like I don't feel sick, but I was just talking for all 4 days that I was at Tucson, just nonstop and networking and meeting people and talking to retailers and vendors. I mixed the two of those there. Sorry about that. And I Tucson is just an experience. Like, I don't quite think I have the words to articulate exactly how I feel right now. Actually, that's a lie. No, I definitely do. Hold on. Let me put this together. I said this in my speech that I gave at Out of the Jewel Box. I said that attending Tucson for me, and maybe I would feel different if I went for like less days, if I went for only 2 days. But I went for 4 days and I was slammed like all 4 days that I was there. I don't even know if I could have done the trip in a shorter amount of time. Um, but I feel like the experience of going to Tucson is the closest thing that I can reconcile to the experience of having an unmedicated natural birth. And before you think I sound crazy, hear me out. Like, you do all this prep before you go. Like, people do all this prep before they have a kid. And then you're like equally excited, and you also know that it's going to hurt. Like, you know, it's going to hurt your bank account. You know, it's going to hurt your like physical body. That's the thing that like surprised me the most is I was just in a state of like constant pain, and I'm a fairly athletic person. I don't think that I would consider myself to be like incapable of pulling this off and doing this many days of that much walking. And as a lot of people saw me in heels and might pinpoint it as that, but I would disagree. I brought my sneakers with me to the majority of places. I only wore the heels like on a couple different occasions when I knew that there was like a very fancy party. Like, I dressed up and I wore heels. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, the way that I see it and the way that I compare it to like an unmedicated birth is I was just in like so much more physical pain than I could have ever anticipated. And I think that it was also so rewarding that in some time from now, you'll just like get complete amnesia. Excuse me. Let me get a drink of water. That was a lot of talking. Hold on. You get complete amnesia like after, I don't know, when your kid grows up a little bit, and then you're like, oh yeah, I could do this again. Like, it's rewarding enough. And for so many of us, we're bringing like little babies into the world. Please forgive me if this is not making sense. I'm so tired, but I do think this way, that like whether you're bringing a gemstone and you're presenting it, you brought a gemstone into the world and you're trying to sell it, or you're like sourcing gemstones and then you're going to bring a design into the world, or you're an exhibitor and you're bringing whatever you're bringing to Tucson. Like, everyone is creating or making something, whether it's making a business or making a design or making you know a gem. And so all of that is very similar to me to unmedicated birth. Again, I'm not a mom. I have not had a child. So maybe this is a weird thing to say. I kind of don't care. I feel like that's like the most like thing that I can correlate the experience of going to Tucson to. Anyways, I was going to recap my time because I did have a really special time. I drove down to Tucson with my mother-in-law, who is also my business coach. And I asked her to come with me because I drove from Colorado, and we were going to do the drive in a single day. And I knew that I could not do that drive by myself. It's about 11 hours, 11 and a half. And I knew I couldn't make it in one straight shot. And so she tagged along, which was very gracious of her. And we, just took turns driving down. And then I got to bring her with me. Like that was the most special thing is, she really is business savvy, and I was able to help her understand part of my world so that then she can kind of coach me through how to make the best decisions moving forward and stuff like that. So that was awesome. We went to the trade shows. We went to the Out of the Jewel Box cocktail party on the very first day. And when I say my first day, I mean Wednesday, which was technically the third day of AGTA, but we had gotten there in the evening on Tuesday, February 3rd, and so this was the fourth. And then the next morning, I bought her flight back to Colorado as a thank you for helping me drive out, but she couldn't stay as much as she wanted to. She has other clients and people that she's coaching back home, and so she had to run back. But I was so grateful to just show her part of the world that I'm moving through, and that was really special. And then in the evening, we went to the Women's Jewelry Association party that was just a bunch of members getting together and socializing. It was really lovely. On Thursday, I went to the Pueblo show to connect with John Knoll from Top Notch Faceting, and I just was so grateful that he was willing to meet me, and he helped me at least try to understand all that he does that's so unique to him and artistic about him in the way that he approaches and does his gem cutting. It's like gem cutting doesn't even feel like an appropriate label to identify what his work is, because he really immerses himself into the experience of bringing a gemstone to life in the most like raw and thoughtful way. Everything is so intentional about what he does, and I was just absolutely mind blown and grateful that he took the time to articulate what he does to me, and that was just an incredibly special experience. And I got to head back over to GJX, which was, oh my gosh, just I I was bouncing all over the place. I was a little bit more turned around at GJX than I was at AGTA, because at AGTA I know a lot of the vendors, and so I feel like pretty comfortable moving in and out of the booths and talking to friends and vendors who I've been familiar with and have relationships and have bought from before. And GJX was just like, oh my gosh, I only knew one vendor there, which is unusual for me. I feel like normally I walk in and I know people, and um, it's social. And then GJX was just like, oh my gosh, there's so many more. This is so much bigger than I thought it was going to be. And so yeah, I went around. I mean, I saw some incredible Paribas while I was there, which I don't see a lot of. It's not a request that we get often in Colorado, and so it was really special to see. I think Ribas and Spinels are probably my two favorite stones. And so that was awesome. Saw some like famous jewelers walking around, and I considered whether or not I was going to like introduce myself, and I decided not to, just because they looked like they were on a mission, and I think it's the most annoying thing when you're like trying to do business and then someone interrupts you. So I did not approach them, but I respect them a lot. And if the opportunity presents itself where it would be appropriate for me to introduce myself, I would love to connect with those people. They don't know who they are, but I have them in my mind's eye as like potential people that I hope to one day connect with. And after that, after walking around GJX for a while, I went to the Spectrum Awards, which I was just curious about. Like I've known people who have won Spectrum Awards, but I've never like been, and honestly, if I'm really like transparent, I was pretty skeptical about them. And just like wanted to see what it was about. I think that if Spectrum were open to some really honest feedback, the Spectrum Awards, and I don't know if this is even like my place to say, and I don't think that they care about my opinion, but I do think that if we had a really honest conversation about what the Spectrum Awards are and who judges them and who wins them, there needs to be, at least in my opinion, again, I think that there needs to be separate categories for any designs that utilize CAD, and then its own unique category for all pieces that exclusively include hand fabrication. And I say that because they're just simply not the same skill set. It is not apples to apples, it's apples to oranges. And the difference in detail and the execution is worth pinpointing and worth identifying and worth recognizing in its own right. That's why it's so impressive to me, like when the Tuggles won the Spectrum Award for their brooch. They did like a feather brooch that I've had the opportunity to see in person. That's super impressive. And the fact that they beat out like all these other CAD pieces, like that's worth celebrating. And I think when I like first heard that they had one, I was like, oh, cool. But then when I went to the awards, it like dawned on me a little bit more that, oh, what they did, like to be able to do that, like I was even more impressed, if that makes sense. I don't think it's fair to put, and it goes both ways. Like I don't think it's fair to put CAD up against hand fabrication. And I don't think it's fair to put hand fabrication up against CAD. They're just completely different. And I am frustrated. If I had one frustration with the award show, it was that everything was put together in these like they just didn't have a differentiator. And to me, pieces that are hand fabricated are always and will always be more impressive to me because I value the artistry and the skill that it took to achieve that. And with CAD, it's just like, not that it doesn't take skill, it's just a different skill. And it's not necessarily a skill that I hold to be as valuable as the skill of hand fabrication. That's just like my like hand fabrication for me is top tier. And so I don't want to see hand fabrication pieces going up against CAD pieces. I don't know if this is going to get me blacklisted. I know that I get labeled as being anti-CAD, and it's because I am. And again, like I'm anti-CAD for me, like for me and what I hold to be like artistic, right? Like to have artistic merit and value. I think that hand fabrication is where it's at, and CAD feels like a cheat, feels like a shortcut to me. And I don't, I'm not, if you use CAD and it works for you, then it works for you. And that's fantastic. It's just like not interesting to me personally. I don't know if people are just gonna absolutely come for my throat for saying this on the internet, but somebody's got to say it. Somebody's got to say, hey, these are just not the same discipline. At least differentiate them. I have no problem with you celebrating it because I do think like I took a CAD class. It was so difficult. Like I absolutely have an appreciation for the technique and the time that it takes to learn CAD and learn it well. It's just a different skill than doing that same sort of learning process and learning curve on a bench. And sorry, it's not the same, but it's like you still put in the hours, like you put in the work. And so I respect that. I respect the hard work. I respect the artisans that bring all the pieces to life. And I respect that, CAD also does have a lot of great finishing and stone setting and all of that. But to me, if it's not hand fabricated, it's just not that interesting. And I'm just going to be really blunt about that because I've waited 6 years for that opinion of mine to change, and it hasn't. Like I've always had that opinion. I've been trained in that opinion, not intentionally, but just like the shops that I've always worked for and wanted to work for have always been hand fabrication. There was no place for CAD because that wasn't the objective. And so yeah, I think if the Spectrum Awards were open to like a really honest critique, that would be my one tidbit of feedback. Because otherwise, I thought it was great. I thought it was fun. Um, I thought that the announcer was lovely and charismatic, and I thought that the evening altogether, like I had the best time. I just I could understand like from a competitor's perspective, like if I eventually want to apply to the Spectrum Awards, like I don't really have a motivation to. I don't really want to because if I take the time to hand fabricate something and it's just going to be compared to a CAD, like why would I do that? And it's not like the Spectrum Awards are cheap. I think when you enter something, it's a couple $100, and most people enter like up to 5 or 6 pieces, and that becomes a grand. And so, yeah, I think there's a money element to it too, where I'm like, give hand fabricated people a chance to show off in their own distinction. I have a really strong opinion about this, if you can't tell. I don't like that there are people who have never stepped foot into a jewelry shop, you know, like they can just do a doodle or do a sketch and send it out to a different CAD artist and then send it to a different manufacturing place and then send it to a different stone setter and they never touch the piece and then they win an award. Like, no, no, I'm sorry. That's not a game I want to play. As someone who cares really deeply about the art and every aspect of it, I'm not gonna participate in that circus. And I might be getting myself blacklisted right now, but it was a wonderful evening. It was a wonderful evening, but it's not the same. It is not the same, and it needs to be addressed. And I will die on that hill because I have waited for my opinion to change for years and I never have. So at this point, I'm like, it just is what it is, that my anti-cadness is pretty just like locked in. And again, I want to clarify. I don't have a problem with other people using CAD. I just don't like it for myself. And when I think about things that deserve, its own category, I truly, deeply believe that hand fabrication should get its own distinction. So, anyways, the evening was lovely. I freaking sat next to Katerina Perez. Like, who gets to do that? She's incredible. She's so elegant. Her and I had the best time. We had great banter back and forth talking about, the just the whole like whimsicalness of the evening. It was a wonderful event, um somewhere in the rainbow and all the families that put it on. It was just great. So okay, I'll stop and we'll move on. All right. So then Friday came along, and Friday, I was joined by the wonderful Bella Glass. She had her day off with her company and she just said, "Hey, can I tag along?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And so we went to the Alfie Norvell Museum for Shelley's talk first thing in the morning, and we saw Nolan Sponsler. Oh, wait, wait, I missed something. What did I miss? Oh yeah, I after the sorry. After the Spectrum Awards, I went to the Brick Box for the Reflections show, which had so many of my friends in it. I'm so sorry. I'm so tired. I missed that one. And I was in a gown, and it was like this sticky bar floor, and I was like so grateful that I brought a pair of jeans and a top to change into. So I was like in the bathroom of this bar, like taking off my gown and slipping into like casual jeans that I didn't care if someone spilled on, and got to hang out and meet so many people and see a lot of like the Pass the Torch alumni there. Okay, now back to Friday. Thank you. Um, so Bella came along. We went to the museum tour with Shelly, and then we went to 22nd Street, and I picked up some tourmalines from some fellow Brazilians who were wonderful and very communicative, and showed me some really great stones. And then I went to the, sorry, my brain's not working. And then Bella and I did some damage at Kent's jewelry supply shop. And if you have not been to Kent's, oh my gosh, and you're a jeweler. If you have not been to Kent's and you're a jeweler, holy moly, it is a great spot. Not all the pricing is like, some pricing is fair, some pricing is a little bit more expensive, but it's great for one-offs because instead of buying a pack of something, you can buy just one of something because he obviously buys in bulk and then separates it out and you can buy that. So I actually think out of the whole trade show, I spent the most money on tools. I after that I went to the snag spot. Okay, if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, you will notice that my environment and my screen has changed. I had to interrupt the last recording and move on with my day and drive to my next location. So now I am at the place that I am going to be staying for the rest of the week. And I wanted to finish out this episode and this conversation because where I was going with the thought before I got interrupted was that I went to the SNAG event, which is Society of North American Goldsmiths, and they had their whole hall just completely decked out. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is a treasure trove. Like, they put on such a good event, and they were also just the nicest people. And they brought in so many different tool manufacturers. And I think if you're like a jeweler and you're actually sitting down at the bench, that's one of the best places you can go because seeing what tools are available, like new tools, is really game changing. And I say that because I was actually having a conversation the other day with Chapin, and he was saying that, well, when you first started out, there were a couple people who didn't think that you would be able to be a bench jeweler because you're kind of a like smaller framed person. And he said that to me, with love. Him and I have the rapport where he can totally say that. And I'm kind of a weakling. Like, I'm self-aware enough to like recognize that I'm a weakling, at least in like my arm strength, right? So for me to be able to find the right tools that make up that difference is a really big deal. So having power tools, air tools, the right grip on things, the right vices, all of that, it's really important. And these kind of events and the way that Snag put it together, they had benches where you could go and you could give these tools a spin. And the vendors were also really lovely and kind. I think they had a couple like clipper guys that I hadn't ever heard about before. I know they had Guess Wine and Pepe and GRS and a couple others. And it was just great to meet those teams, like really actually get personal with the people who I spend so much money with. Like, I buy a lot of tools from these companies, and it's really good to know who's on the other like receiving end of my order. And so yeah, I thought that that was probably another like really definitive takeaway that made this trip worth it. And they also had like an artist market, which was awesome. I hope to someday, not someday, I know someday I'll have it, but I hope to probably maybe by next year. I don't know how it's going to go, but I hope to have, start building an inventory and have pieces so that when there's an artist market, I can participate with some of my own stuff. I'm just not quite there yet, but a lot can happen in a year. So yeah, I think that is like yeah, that just made it so worth it. And then I wrapped it up at the GIA alumni event, which was like super swanky. Of course, like GIA, so swanky. I personally am not someone who's gonna get out on the dance floor, especially to like EDM and techno. Yeah, you won't catch me doing that. But I had a lot of fun people watching other people who were doing that. Um, I'm trained in Latin ballroom, so if anyone wants to host a ballroom event, then I will get out on the dance floor. But until that day arrives, which it likely won't, I will be staying far, far away from the dance floor. But it's fun to watch people enjoy themselves. And the very last thing I wanted to wrap on, because I think it's important to just be so transparent about the things that were also difficult and hard about the trip. My body hurts so bad, or hurt, I should say, in past tense. I woke up this morning in an inconceivable amount of pain. And I was beside myself. I was just hurting everywhere. My shoulders hurt, my hips hurt, my legs hurt, my feet hurt, like everywhere. And oh my gosh, I was like, I can't physically move. I was like moving like molasses. It was so painful, like genuinely painful. And I know that I was going into this next week where I'm I'm doing another engraving class. Like I just left one, a really intense week, and I'm going right into another one. If I don't find a way to recover, um, this is not going to be good. If I don't find a way to recover before going into this next class, I'm not going to be able to absorb the information that I'm trying to in this class. And so the absolute best decision I could have possibly made for myself today was I found a Chinese medicine masseuse, and she was like a reflexologist. A little hole in the wall in Tucson, very close to my hotel, and I went and I called in the morning and she was able to get me in. I called at like 9 a.m. and she was able to get me in by noon. And when I tell you that was the best money I could have possibly spent, like, guys, I don't think you understand. I could not walk. I was in so much pain. And it's not like anything happened. I was just walking around the gem show. Like, I was just walking around Tucson. I didn't do anything extraneous. I even had my car. Like, I didn't walk as much as other people. And I'm young and athletic. But oh my gosh, I was just, everything hurt. Everything. I just was in so much pain. I haven't been in that much pain in a really long time. And she booked me for an hour and a half massage, so 90 minutes. And I paid her $80 plus tip. And I walked in there, a broken woman, and I don't know how she did it, but she put me back together. And I feel so good right now. Like my body feels good, and I'm gonna get, a 12-hour night sleep, or not 12. That's the stretch. What am I gonna get? I'm gonna get an 8-hour night sleep. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get an 8-hour night sleep before I head into the engraving class with Jeff Park. So thank you for listening to this episode of Pass the Torch, Legacies in Jewelry. This year is different. I am walking with a little bit more confidence in just the way that I move through the world. I think I feel like I have a really clear head this year, and it's a relief. And I'm grateful and also excited to start sharing some of my journey of what my experience of quote unquote pass the torch means, like being the one on the receiving end of that exchange, and wanting to share that in addition to wanting to share people's stories of their experiences that are past. So we have both past experience happening and current experiences, and how that exchange moves and flows. So thank you again, and if I saw you in Tucson, it was lovely to meet you. If I didn't catch you, I hope to catch you next time. And thank you so much for just having and being a part of this incredible business and incredible industry. My name is Naja Desafandiste. I will catch you on the next episode. Stay tuned. Have a good one.